Okay, so I want to talk about an issue that's very personal to me. Um, a quick explanation as to why I'm going to disable comments on this video. The vast majority of my videos I allow comments, and I allow plenty of dissenting views that disagree with myself. But the reason I'm going to disable comments on this one is because on those occasions when I have made videos about Northern Ireland, I've made a few before. Unfortunately, it's always attracted sectarian bullshit, the very sort of thing that I want to avoid. Um, I haven't made that many videos on Northern Ireland. I've made over 1,000 videos, and the vast majority of them are about other issues. But anyway, I want to talk about something that matters a lot. It's a very central part of my identity. And the reason I'm making this is because maybe others out there may be able to empathize with it, and also as an explanation to people who may be a bit confused with the situation. And it is about Northern Irish identity in mainland Britain. Probably the title of this video is going to be exactly the same as previous titles I've used. Um, but it would be interesting for me myself to look back at those videos and see how I felt about the situation then, how I feel about it now. Can't imagine it's much different. I believe the last one I made was about 3 years ago, roughly speaking. Partly, I've been motivated to make this by reading a report about Steve Nolan. I don't know the guy, but apparently he's a Radio 5 presenter. Um, recognize his voice, so I've heard him on radio a few times. But apparently he got into a dispute in a Manchester restaurant because he wanted to pay with Ulster banknotes and they wouldn't accept. And he lost his temper because they were obviously sterling banknotes. Um, according to the Bank of England, Scottish notes or Northern Irish notes can be legal tender in England, but it's down to the discrepancy of the two parties involved. So whilst it is legal tender, apparently businesses have the right to refuse it. Um, I personally do take issue with that because I think it's an insult to constituent nations of the United Kingdom. I take the view that all businesses should be obliged to accept legal tender anywhere in the United Kingdom. And I guarantee you, when English businesses refuse Northern Ireland banknotes, 99% of the time it's got nothing to do with politics. Like they're not making some sort of statement in favour of an Irish Republic or something like that. It's because they're thick. I'm sorry to be blunt about it, but that's the answer. They're thick. And they've obviously never seen a map of the United Kingdom. And I admit I do have very little patience with this because I've seen it throughout my life. I had once an issue with this in a local shop here in Sunderland, and in the end, it just paid with English coins. But it shouldn't have to be that way. I can understand if you're trying to pay with a euro or Chinese renminbi or whatever, because they are different currencies. But in my opinion, sterling should be accepted anywhere in the United Kingdom. I think people are put off by the fact there's a different design on the note, and the Queen's head isn't on the Northern Ireland banknotes, but the sterling part is the key part. That means it was legal tender. So that kind of got me thinking about the experience of other Ulstermen, Ulsterwomen in mainland Britain. Um, a few quick words about myself. Another problem with making any video connected to Northern Ireland is you're immediately pigeonholed. So people who don't like what I'm saying will, if they're in Ireland, they will pigeonhole me as a Paisley-esque Ulster Unionist type loyalist blowhard. And critics in England will probably say, "Oh, it's just another crazy Irishman with hardline sectarian views." What you need to understand is that for many people from Northern Ireland, and I know I'm not alone in this, it is the whole issue of identity is a very complex subject. I guess it's a bit like being British Chinese or British Indian. You know, if you have a mixed identity, if you're British Chinese, I'm saying this because I've seen people interviewed with this, and I have British Chinese friends who've spoken of this. they're sort of torn between two identities, the Chinese identity and the British identity, and what they even call themselves sometimes becomes a complex issue. What's quite similar if you're Northern Irish, I always describe myself as Northern Irish, not Irish. Now, this is not because I'm hostile to Ireland, not at all. I have a lot of respect for Ireland. I'm talking here about the Republic of Ireland. I have a lot of respect for Celtic culture. I think it's a fascinating place. I'm fascinated by Irish culture, by Irish history, all this sort of thing. And I'm very pleased that we have a strong relationship with the Republic of Ireland, and we should do. They're our neighbouring country, and politically speaking, apart from the differences over United Ireland, the United Kingdom and Ireland have very good relations, and I hope that continues. So I have no hostile feelings whatsoever to the Republic of Ireland. Also, this is an important point. If in my lifetime the Six Counties goes back to the Republic of Ireland through peaceful democratic process, i.e., through a referendum, then I'll feel strange about it certainly, and probably I would, if I had a vote, I'd probably vote for Northern Ireland to stay in the UK. In fact, I probably definitely would. But if it went back to the Republic, I would not. I'd accept that. To be quite honest, and this is speaking absolutely candidly, I think there's a bigger chance of Northern Ireland going back to the Republic than there is of Scotland or Wales becoming independent from the United Kingdom, or for England for that matter. I think the United Kingdom, at least in Great Britain, will endure for a very long time. I do think there's a chance that in my lifetime Northern Ireland will go back. The thing is, there's very stubborn people on both sides who will threaten violence if they don't get their way. Certainly the dissident IRA, who I made a video about a while back, um, continue their pathetic little campaign of violence. Um, and it's not going to get them what they want. But to be honest, there are those on the loyalist side who would also resort to violence if they don't get their way. They're not as prominent in terms of an actual campaign as those on the Republican side, but I do think, I'll be honest about it, the Northern Ireland Unionist side has some pretty questionable links. And outside the whole realm of sectarianism in Northern Ireland, they've had a long history of connections with the far right, like neo-Nazi types. And there's no question about that. I'm not talking about everyone, I'm talking about the extremists. Um, Believe me, I don't want to be associated with people like that. But this is the thing. When I look at my own identity, do I see myself as an Irishman? No. I see myself as an Ulsterman. I see myself as someone who is Northern Irish. And Northern Ireland is a unique culture. That's a fact. It is not a culture that is absolutely aligned with the rest of Ireland. It's just not. Yes, of course, a shared history. Of course, it's a Celtic culture, but it's a unionist Celtic culture. And that unionist faction, people who don't know anything about this conflict, they get especially annoyed by people from the outside, especially people who want to be critical of the UK. They come out with crap like give Ireland back to the Irish. And to me, that's an insult to thousands of people in Northern Ireland who, by their own choice, want to be in the United Kingdom. And I suppose a similar argument could be made that here in the West, in the Western world, we talk about freedom for Tibet and freedom for, just using this as an example, but there's Tibetans that want to be in China. And I know a Mongolian guy, an ethnic Mongolian, who has told me he would prefer to be in the People's Republic of China than the country of Mongolia. So all I'm saying is that when major powers have constituent nations, it is not true that everyone in those constituent nations have this romantic notion of independence from the big imperial power. That is completely misguided. And that is very much the case for Northern Ireland. People from the outside have this idea that it's all about the English versus the Irish. That's a lot of crap. In fact, to be honest, most people in England don't care about this. You'd find that there's a lot more focus on the conflict. If anywhere in England, it would be in Liverpool, but there's a lot more attention on it in Scotland and Northern Ireland. I don't think there's much in Wales. Um, what I would say to Irish Republicans on, and this is not just in the Republic of Ireland, but in Northern Ireland as well, I respect your right to have your view. But what I would say is you have to respect my right to identify myself the way I want. You know, I don't agree with Scottish nationalists. I don't think Scotland should be an independent country. I believe it's better remaining part of the United Kingdom. But I would never say to a Scottish nationalist, you have no right to call yourself Scottish and not British. I wouldn't think that is an accurate position, but who am I to question how someone else identifies themselves? So I would use the same logic. Nobody has a right to tell me how I should identify myself. So no Irish person has a right to say, oh, you can't call yourself Northern Irish, you can't call yourself British. And no English person has a right to pigeonhole me, oh, as another Irishman. Both ways it pisses me off. And sometimes I think Northern Ireland does get overshadowed in the United Kingdom. We're the smallest constituent nation by both area and population. We're isolated because we're not on the island of Great Britain. Um, so yeah, I think there is quite a prevalent view among people from Northern Ireland that we are overlooked. One example of this would be in the Olympics. Team GB, I've taken issue with this. I actually wrote to the British Olympic Commission, Team GB, and said, look, why not change this to Team UK? It's a lot more reflective of what we are as a country. Team GB would to note that it is just England, Scotland, and Wales. Team UK would encompass the whole country. There's been Northern Irish athletes. Um, so to me, that is a slur. Um, I mean, the role, and this is something I think is very important to emphasise, the role that Northern Ireland has played in British history is profound. When we look at such figures as C.S. Lewis, as Kenneth Branagh, as George Best, there's a long list of very prominent figures who have their roots in Northern Ireland. A lot of people for a small place. Um, then let's look at the sacrifice that Northern Ireland has played in British history. On the first day of the Battle of the Somme, the first day, the first charge over the top was the 36th Ulster Division, including my great uncle. And the sacrifice was massive. During World War II, during the Blitz, Belfast was one of the most heavily bombed cities, just as bad as Coventry. That can be said of many cities across the United Kingdom. But the point I'm making with this is that Northern Irishmen and women have played a very important role in the United Kingdom. And I do feel, and I do have some resentment, that Northern Ireland is overshadowed and underappreciated in my view. So people in the Republic might say, well, the English don't care about you anyway, so why not just come back to the Republic of Ireland? Well, again, I point out the unique culture that does exist in Northern Ireland. And this is not something that's happened recently. Now, we can talk, all day. You can make a 10-hour video about the complexities of Irish history. I'm not going to attempt to do that. Terrible things have happened in Irish history. And yes, some of that was at the hands of British forces. I'm not going to deny it. But to suggest that the Ulster Unionist community is something new or something like this English takeover ignores the fact that this is centuries and centuries of generations in Northern Ireland. You could argue about the origins of that, but in the end of the day, these people have called Ulster their home for generations. Only in Northern Ireland would you see a conflict like the Battle of the Boyne debated so heavily. I know in England, to some extent, there's politics over the wars of the Three Kingdoms, but not to the extent that the Battle of the Boyne is in Northern Ireland. Because sometimes I have to say, I get really tired of the sectarianism from both sides, including the Unionist side. I watch videos from Northern Ireland, like leading up to the general election, and it's about all the same old shit. Issues that you wouldn't necessarily get in England, Scotland, or Wales. Um, You know, in England, Scotland, and Wales, it's issues like health, education, this sort of thing. Northern Ireland, those are also issues, but there's always a sectarianism factor in that. Now, I don't want to be overtly negative. Northern Ireland has come a very, very long way, and I'm hugely proud of Northern Ireland for doing that. But there is still that sectarian faction. What I would suggest is Northern Ireland needs to, those who want Northern Ireland to be part of the Republic need to look at Scotland. Now, the Scottish nationalists, I strongly disagree with them, but at least they haven't resorted to terrorist violence. That's a difference with Irish nationalists. I know there's differences in the origins of Scotland and the United Kingdom, but that's a fact. So anyway, I'm going to leave us here. All I want to say is anyone watching this video, um, I'm not playing the victimhood card here. I have a pretty good life, you know. I'm not trying to make out that, oh, I'm discriminated against or something. All I'm saying is there is times that it is very plausible and palpable that Northern Ireland is overlooked. Um, Irish Republicans, I respect your view, but you also have to respect the fact that people like me have a right to identify ourselves as we want. I'm not doing this to please English people. You know, I'm doing it because that's how I feel. In my heart and soul, I feel Northern Irish, not Irish. To people in England, look at a map, educate yourselves. It's not complicated. I'm not talking about everyone in England, by the way, but it is widespread. It's not complicated. The United Kingdom is a sovereign state, divided into four home nations: England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. That is not complicated. So for goodness sake, just, you know, learn about your own country. That's the thing. If you don't know about the subject, you actually don't know about your own country. Our country is the United Kingdom.